The Ways and Means Committee meeting will be called to order. Would you call the roll, Mr. Clerk?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Moore. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Williamson.
Here.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Muhammad. You have 4 present. You have a quorum, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Today we have one board bill on the agenda today, and it's Board Bill 240. So I'd like to place a motion on the floor to accept a subcommittee of 240.
It's an
Well,
amendment.
there's the one in front of us first.
And the amendment.
Right,
I think we
you have
gotta
to-
do first.
you have to pick up this and then have to put that with the amendment in front of them.
Right.
So does everybody have copies of it?
Yeah, I think they do.
Thank you.
So clerk just informed me to also to adopt the amendment that we have along with Committee Sub 240.
Don't we have to put the
Put
board
the
bill in
bill
front of us
before-
first?
Right.
Board Bill 240.
So we'll make a motion to put board bill 240 in front of us.
Second. Second.
And then you have a
Call the roll.
All right, Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Moore. Alderman Vaccaro.
aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Williamson.
All right. Okay. We have quite a few guest speakers today.
Are we putting the committee sub
It's
in?
too late to do it. Yeah, put it together. So we got it. We're gonna call it the city council. So hold on, it'll be all right. Okay. So we have several guest speakers today. We have Mr. Paul Payne from the Budget Director's Office and Mr. Jim Garvali. We also have the City Council, Mr. Julian Bush, and he will explain after we kind of discuss this bill about the amendment that has been made. So, Mr.
Okay.
Garvali.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As stated, we have before you today Board Bill number 240, Committee Sub, and this board bill will, with your affirmative vote, will place before the voters the opportunity to pass a $50 million no tax increase bond issue on the August ballot, August 2018 ballot. To my left, we have various members of city government and the administration who can speak to any questions you have regarding the specifics that you'll see on Exhibit A. And to my right is Mr. Paul Payne, who, as Budget Director and Chairman of the Capital Committee, can give us a bit of an overview to what we have here before you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Morning.
committee. As a way of background, let me just go back a little bit. If you remember back, back 3 years ago, 2014, the city compiled a citywide capital needs inventory. It was quite substantial. We had we totaled about over $300 million, from which proposal for a bond issue in late 2015 emerged of about $180 million. And if, all this information's online if anyone's interested in taking a look at it. We met with citizens, we talked with departments and all, evaluated things, and we rated them on a priority based on critical needs and such like that. Well, that bond issue that was in, I believe it was August 2015, it failed at the ballot. So subsequent to that, in 2016, through the Comptroller's Office, they identified a potential for a $25 million bond issue with the fact that the tax levy on existing debt was expiring. And rather than have that rate roll back, they said, well, we can issue $25 million utilizing what otherwise would be the rollback in the rate, so that a no tax increase bond issue. And that was pursued and was actually identified as a way of funding some of the items that were not approved in the earlier bigger bond issue. And it was a $25 million, half of which went to for fire department equipment. There were some other items on there. And so that was actually successful, and that passed. And as a matter of fact, if you're interested, I do have a list. Here's what the original bond issue was, the status of the spending. We update this on the city's transparency website every month. So if you want to see where that is, I got hard copies. I'll hand that out. So that brings, and so, but that what that did was just basically fund 25 million. But if you remember, the original needs were, well, 300, but the bond, the proposed bond issue was 180 at the time. Well, it turns out that in this coming year, we have another opportunity with some other general obligation debt rolling off, where we've got a levy that would be rolling off as well later this fiscal year, or next fiscal year. And that would be sufficient, based on the comptroller's and financial advisors' estimates, would be able to support another $50 million bond issue, which would then, again, would not result in an increase in the levy. So with that information, basically, we went back to our capital inventory needs list and consulted with the various department heads we see here and said, what would we like to address based on that existing need that wasn't met before? So on the exhibit to the board bill that you have is a proposed project list for the $50 million in proceeds that we are anticipating to be available from the bond issue. Much of this has been drawn from that old inventory that we had before. There are a number of new items here which have occurred since, and I'll walk you through that. And of course, we have the department heads here that can address any individual questions. It should be an attachment.
They're
The
both-
attach.
They're on the front and backs. Here, next to it.
The attachment to the.
Not there. No, we don't have.
Should be attached to the board bill. No, there should be an attachment to the, yes, that's it.
There it is.
But we don't have. We don't.
Yes, but it's on the committee substitute.
Oh, we don't have that. We need another one.
And we don't even have the right building.
No, we
Okay.
don't.
And see, this is.
Oh, there it is. I see.
Now we're on 2012.
Okay, great.
We do have the committee substitute with the amendments.
No, we do.
Okay, does everyone have a copy of the list I'm going to be talking from? Okay, great.
We had two committee sub bills, but
Okay.
this one does have the change on
All right, so, so basically I'll look at the sources of funds, general obligation bond funds, $50 million, less the estimated cost of issuance, about $1 million, so you've got about $49 million in project funds. This will be a little more refined when you, as you know, this just authorizes the election. There will be a subsequent authorization for the bonds, and when those are known, that will be a little bit more refined back then. Now, on the uses of funds, we've got fire department vehicles totaling $14.1 million. And again, this basically is addressing many of the vehicles that weren't addressed in the smaller bond issue that we did in 2016. And the chief can speak, and I know Equipment Service can speak on some of those vehicle needs. Fire department buildings, fire station roofs, $1.1 million. If you recall, the earlier bond issue also had a similar amount, but that was less than half of what was addressed as the total need for addressing those roofs. And then fire station generators, again, and the fire chief can speak to this in terms of the ability to provide electricity in those times when electricity goes out, basically identified as a need to address those times when in an emergency you actually have power at some of the fire stations. This would not be all. I think it would be about 10, I believe. So it's just a way, and I think those will be mounted on trailers so you can move them around a bit, but it's just a way for backup in an emergency situation. Police.
So there'll be mobile generators.
Yes, yes. On the police department, radio equipment, $6.5 million. This was actually just for the police department piece of the radio equipment. Their current radios are over 10 years old and are at the point where I believe, Jim could correct me, I believe it was Motorola, but the existing service on those radios, will no longer be servicing them. So basically what that means, you need to start replacing them, and that's what that would address. The property custody unit, if you remember, there was a piece of the earlier 2016 bond issue which also had a relocation to property custody. This incorporates not only property custody but the SWAT unit into that facility as well. In corrections, a lot of these, this $6.5 million, a lot of these items were taken from the original inventory needs list. I do want to highlight one big change on there. We do have air conditioning for a good portion of the facility, because that has been such a high, hot topic of conversation, no pun intended, but it has come up, and so that has been discussed, and we did experience some operational costs this year, having to put temporary units in. Obviously, we're going to have to do that probably again this coming summer, but hopefully, if we get this passed, that we would be able to address this on a longer-term basis. Courts and juvenile detention, $5 million. There were a number of items on the original capital needs inventory that had included HVAC, ADA, roofs, and such. We have been, I don't know if you noticed, but in the last few budgets, we've been getting hit on the capital budget side from the courts that say, hey, look, our chillers are breaking down, or something, or we need this ADA improvement into this particular restroom, or something like that, that would have been addressed in a bond issue prior, but since we haven't had the funds, now they impose it upon in our operating budget. So it's one of those things where if we don't address it here, it's going to pop up somewhere else because it's going to have to be addressed one way or the other. And City Hall and other municipal buildings, there are a number of items there, $4.9 million. Restroom upgrades, HVACs and chillers, and Rich could speak to many of these. And those are also from the primarily from the previous inventory needs. One new item on here, and Jim could speak to that if there's questions, the $5 million accounting and payroll system. That has been a big item of need. Our current accounting and payroll system is over 30 years old. It was also recently discussed as one of the things that came up big when the statewide audit was mentioned, say, hey, we need to update this. I can tell you it's a high priority, and so that was one of the items included.
This seems like a small dollar amount for
I'll defer to Jim on it in terms of when we get to the details of which one particular ones. Another item, this actually ADA transition plan, this was $1.5 million. This is basically putting together one of the things that the feds look for when they award dollars for capital improvements and all. They say, where's your ADA plan? We've sort of been stringing things together and saying, well, we have this, we do this. But they look for an established plan in order to award grant monies. So the thinking is that without this plan, you're running the risk of not receiving future grant awards. And so that was a big item. Also, this also came up in discussions when we had the Citizens Advisory Committee and such, where they say, hey, look, you need to address ADA a little bit more in your thinking. And so this also incorporates that. Bridge projects, $2.5 million, and again, I shouldn't have to go over the total inventory. We could probably put a lot of more money into bridges, but some of which fortunately gets us matching funds. Not necessarily, if there's an emergency repair, we could do that just by cash outlay, but others are able to leverage 4 for $1. So those are things you'd like to pursue with those. So the total list uses. Total amount for the project's $49 million, and that's basically what's proposed as for the bond issue. And again, we have multiple department heads that can address any questions on any of the individual projects.
Okay, very well. So we'll go down the road and ask the committee if they have any questions. Alderman Davis.
My question was about the accounting payroll system cost. It just seemed like it was rather low.
Well, Alderwoman, the comptroller's office kind of looked at this, I guess, in a couple of years ago. We looked at systems, we looked at some companies that provided this type of service. We know now what we're looking for, and that's something that will allow us to eliminate paper, and when the departments now will enter vouchers electronically. Everything will be done in real time. The payroll will be integrated totally to the ledger system, so the day that people get paid on a Thursday or a Friday, you'll reflect those numbers in the department rather than wait to batch process over the weekend. And as we enter, as the vouchers are entered through the accounts payable system, you'll be able to go online and see the effect of having put through those vouchers that given day by 4 o'clock that afternoon. In addition to that, it'll give us a fixed asset system that ties directly to everything else rather than a standalone system. And that's, while it's important to us, it's really important to the folks that have the majority of the rolling stock. So we've kind of dabbled in this a little bit, and the comptroller is comfortable at the $5 million number. It's not that things cost less, it's that we believe that what we need, that we can get for this amount of money. And it is a big number, but it may seem like it's not enough, but based on the analysis that we've done thus far, and I guess the knowledge of what we don't want, we think that this is adequate.
Okay, I'm gonna let this go right now because for me, I still think it's antiquated, what you're talking about. Because if we're not going to be doing, having the opportunity for us to roll in every department immediately with hours worked, and those types of things, it's still antiquated. And you still gotta report on paper.
And it may be that you get that module, you get that capability as part of the payroll module. I don't know enough of the details specifically, but I believe that the processing of payroll will be, and again, it ties in personnel because there has to be, for the civil service positions, whenever you affect someone's coming, going, pay, doc, retirement, there's a direct tie-in, and now it's all manual. The paper flows from office to office to office and then comes back, and ultimately the payroll clerk, affects whatever that action is. This way, it'll be done, much quicker. And again, it'll be in real time. And what you're speaking about, I understand what you're asking about.
Yeah.
It may be something that is available in the payroll module. I don't know the specifics, but there've been, in what we've looked at thus far, there have been companies that do have that capability. I'm just not sure what the people who will actually come up with the best solution, if we'll actually contract with a company that offers that. But I know what you're speaking of. It's something that it's been presented when we've looked at various options before.
Here's my only concern. I know a lot of this is things that we probably should have done as long as 7 or 10 years ago, so I'm okay with this list. Most especially, I want to see corrections get it set together. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Alderman Moore's not here, Vaquero's not present right now, so Alderman Howard.
Yes. Building on what Alderwoman Davis said, has an RFP been issued for the accounting and payroll system?
It is not. We would not proceed until we have it funded, of course. So while we have looked at some options, we have not convened a selection committee at all.
Okay. And you were alluding to, tracking rolling stock. So are you looking for a comprehensive program to do inventory
There
and
needs
those
to
types
be-
of things also?
Yes, ma'am. We're looking for a program that will allow us to have a fixed asset module that will integrate completely into the rest of the system. And while we don't depreciate assets per se and post depreciation, it will allow us to, when we put together our balance sheets and stuff like that, which appear in financials, by having this system that fully integrates into the ledger and the accounting system, It's so much better. I think it eliminates the chance that we miss something or that we don't, and this is the danger, as equipment services, end of life's rolling stock and brings in new rolling stock, that you just take the snapshot, but it's an ongoing process. And the problem that we have sometimes with a batch process system is that sometimes when it's a manual system, the ins and the outs don't get done in a timely manner because it's manual and you batch process it. And you don't run this particular program every night. It's run probably on the weekend. And this would give us a much more timely and accurate look at
Expensive.
what you have and
Versus
what
what you
you
need to
know,
pay
and what you need to look at, and would also help with replacement cycling. And that if you've got a more accurate listing of your assets, there's just so many different things that this will bring us if we're able to, get this passed.
Also, now, this would be just for, the payroll system would just be for civil service. The county offices would
Well,
not be part of it, or?
No, any office that uses the city's
The
payroll
payroll
system, the
system.
collector revenue does not.
Okay.
But the other offices do not have standalone system. The collector does.
Okay.
But to anybody who runs their payroll through the city system, be they a county office or a civil service office, would benefit by this.
Okay. Okay, and it would, and you're also looking to have a sort of an inventory control along with this?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another byproduct benefit.
Okay. I did have one more question about the police department radio equipment. Now, if we update these, this is kind of looking in the rearview mirror. In the past, there's been questions about the communication between police and fire in an emergency. Will these new ones be able to communicate with police, fire, and others in the city if we would have a catastrophe?
The short answer is yes, and what's happened is, some of you will remember back in 2007, back when the Board of Police Commissioners were there, with the city's approval, they issued bonds to purchase the 800 megahertz Motorola radio system that we currently have in place. And that has it serves all of public safety as well as the city departments. We were informed last in October or November that September 1st of this year, that all of the mobiles, meaning what's in the vehicles, as well as the handhelds, which in case of police and fire, that they clip on their epaulet, those will be manufactured discontinued, as Paul was saying. That there is an inventory of parts available, but when they're gone, and will be left to cannibalize or buy on the secondary market. And so to avoid that, we've put this in here as a number for what we believe to be a majority of, if not all, of the police department's needs. And what we're thinking is that we'll then take the radios that were taken out of service that are still good and use them as needed for the other city departments. The controllers are the base stations that are the more expensive pieces of this. We've been told are still good, that we can probably not just buy Motorola, but we could look at other vendors that are compatible with these base stations and will be good for another 5 years. But down the road though, we're looking at a replacement cost somewhere in excess of $20 million when we go to do this. So it's going to be a big deal. And for right now, this is a stopgap to address a situation that Motorola is manufacturing, discontinuing the product.
No, now, I guess my question is it responsible to do it this way? Will these be able to interface? Will we be able to interface all these radios together at some point if we're buying some now and then 5 years later buying some others?
Well-
with technology changing so rapidly, I just wonder if that's these are, you know,
The city,
a wise decision, I guess.
well, the city, when it purchased the radios back in 2007, and this is the way I understand it, so this is how I'll explain it.
Okay.
There's a Cadillac version and there's a Chevrolet version. All the public safety users, it's a multi-channel radio that allows not only police, fire, and EMS to communicate, but in the case of a mass disaster situation where we bring in mutual aid, we then can communicate with the county and others.
Okay.
So that's our biggest and highest priority.
Right.
So we will continue to have that interoperability. On this, the city side radios, the departments, the operating departments of the city more often are using the Chevrolet version. And that's been, and the cost differential is like $700 difference per individual handheld radio. So we've been told that whether we buy Motorola in the replacement cycle or we buy somebody else's radio, that the same ability for interoperability will remain, because the interoperability is in the base station, not in the radio. So as long as our base stations are good, and I've been told that they are, and we have maintenance contracts on those through the police department, that we should be okay until such time that Motorola tells us that, hey guys, you know, it's time. But again, the point of it is that the system that we currently have, time passes quick, it's 10 years old already. And you know, we just need to just remember that we're kicking this issue down the road a little bit. And we'll have, you know, to do something in probably 5 years or something, 5 to 7 years down the road.
Okay. And then on the corrections, that's all at the workhouse, the facility?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Rich
Sure.
Bradley is here.
We have Mr. Bradley here, would you?
Chairman, so Deputy Director of Public Safety as well can speak to this. It is both. It is at MSI and at the Justice Center as needed. And so we have a breakdown of some items on here. Most of the things are,
Bradley,
you
can
know,
you take the seat right next to,
Can I have a copy of
so they can see you
the
on,
breakdown? I don't have.
be on the mic and
But I think
whatever.
there should be more around.
All this is being taped.
I'm gonna take a, can I have a copy of the breakdown? I just step
I
out.
don't have it.
Is it any substitute?
You have to talk to Paul.
Yeah, mine's in here.
I think that's it.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Just put that.
Go ahead, Mr. Bradley, go ahead.
so,
Put it in the committee, some of this.
Yeah.
so many of the items are mechanical, electrical, video security items that are at both facilities. And obviously, the large item, the air conditioning, is at MSI, but it is at both facilities. There's a breakdown of items.
Sprinkler systems, I take it, are at MSI?
Yes.
There was one other. Oh, and then the property and custody SWAT headquarters, I think you might have said where that is, but I,
It's, if you imagine the intersection of Hampton and Interstate 44, it's Wilson Avenue.
oh,
You go east on
where
Wilson to
Streets is.
59th Street.
okay.
You make a right, and it's the third building up on the east side of the street. And
Okay.
I wish I knew the address, but
That's
it's on
okay, no, I
59th
just
Street.
was wondering,
You know
I,
where- I know where
yeah,
it
I
is.
know where you're talking about, that's fine. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. So that's where property will be retained and we're gonna update that building to
Yes, ma'am.
make
What
it more
will,
secure and
the property custody is still in the basement of the old
old
um,
headquarters,
police
yeah.
headquarters. And SWAT and Bomb and Arson have moved all of their equipment, the rolling stock equipment, to the building already. What that did was allow us to sell a building on Gibson, I think last year, and I don't remember how much we sold it for, but we were able to get out of that building, and theoretically what we're gonna do is, now that we've found a buyer and a developer for the muni courts, when we're able to transition everything out of the old police headquarters, that's gonna be the next project that we're gonna look at to see if we can get a developer interested on doing something there.
At the police headquarters?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right. Alderwoman Murphy.
Alderman Howard asked and most of my questions. I said, just one of the fire station generators. I assume the police department already has them, and if we only the fire department needs these mobile generators for emergencies, the police department already has
So
them?
the police substations do have them. The fire
Okay.
department headquarters on the previous 25 million, we replaced both of those.
Okay.
Large generators. So the idea is mobile generators with disconnect switches, and we would work with the fire department to determine which ones, so in certain neighborhoods, each neighborhood, that we could move generators with all the disasters going on. Many of the city buildings don't have them, but what the beauty of mobile generators are, is if we would put disconnects on other buildings, we could use these mobile generators on those buildings as well. So it's kind of a twofer.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Okay, very good. All right, Alderwoman Boyd.
Yes, my, question is, for the corrections, do they have generators?
Corrections, I believe, has generators. I believe.
I'm in my mind's eye. Yes.
Deliver diesel fuel folks, I think.
Yeah.
So they have, okay, generators. And then, in this, in your projected projects, I didn't see anything to upgrade IT within the city, because that's been a big issue, the whole IT system. So you all didn't look at that into the,
Well, it has been. Previously, with the bond issue, we looked at the major projects. The last time we did one with the assessor's office, remember we purchased assessors. Also annually, we allocate a small portion of the capital fund for IT. And now, granted, it's not that much, I mean,
Right.
but it's for basically replacement of equipment. But that's what we've done here. But the big item, for if it were quote-unquote IT related, would be the accounting and payroll system, which will have a lot of impact in terms of how departments use the systems itself.
okay.
I didn't know, Tom, you had a-
Yeah, if I could. So when you do IT upgrades, it's important that you do them in small portions. If you go out and try to do an $8-10 million project, the success rate's about 60%. So you have to go after bites you can handle. When you do these things, it's important that you have managers on board that bring the consultants together, or you get this failure. So we're very happy if we get this $5 million and move forward with this. We've been dealing with this antiquated payroll system for decades. It's one big hunk. It's not to say that, you know, a year or two from now, we're gonna need another project, absolutely. But we need to bite off what we can. We have the CAMA project going on in the assessor's office now, $2.5 million. It's taking everything we have to manage that project to make it a success. It's about success and avoiding the failure. You know, there's stats out there, when governments take on big IT projects, they fail. This is a good-sized project, this is what we need to do. There will be more to come. We just recently appointed an IT director, if you're not aware of that, in the last month. She's
Yeah.
trying to get her handle on how to bring everything together. It's huge. We've been operating in silos for years. She's trying to break down the silos. I would expect that you'll hear from her at budget time with some, you know, guidance in that. So let's give it a little time, let's try to get this approved, would be my ask.
Okay, and then the other piece, because I see all departments in the sheriff department, as we know, they're obsolete. They're running in the 18th century, I'm not going to say 19, they run 18th century. So is there anything that we need to look at to put them, bring them at least to the 19th century?
Actually, when we looked at this, there, in addition to the sheriff, there's the other operating departments, some, particularly with vehicle needs, and Chris Amos could probably tell you our tales of woe with that. The way we looked at it was this. If you recall, we were addressing prior fire department vehicle needs with the 2016 issue and hopefully with this issue. We had the refuse fee, which one of our, addressed some of our vehicle needs with refuse. And we have an actual, laid out a plan to try to reduce the vehicle life cycle over at refuse, utilizing the refuse fee. So we've identified a source and a use for both of those. Those were the two big ticket items. Then there's the remainder of the city fleet. What we hope to do is be able to do that through the capital fund, through the rolling stock leases annually. Next on the list, and again, we get a priority list from BPS and Chris Amos over the ESD, saying what replacements are currently need to be done. I know the sheriff in particular had a number of vans on there. That would be on the list. Hopefully we can get that financed through the capital budget this coming year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Alderman Ricardo.
Yeah, a couple. So the, Todd, the payroll and accounting, that was also, I want to jump up there, that was also in the 2010 audit of the city that we needed to update that. Well, I know I wasn't here, Carl, I'm sorry. I had to step out. And so that corrects that then?
So we're on board that this is the perfect best step to move forward with that, yes. Yes, I mean, you all know what we're dealing with payroll, with carbon paper and, such, and, this is the first step. In bringing this thing together and being able to take care of, actually, we'll be able to take care of our employees better. Because right now with the mainframe use, we're very limited on how many boxes, how many places people can set money aside. It limits our ability to take care of our employees. So I think this is a great first blush at a big need we have, and I think this $5 million will take care of it. I've checked with the IT director, she's very comfortable with this $5 million will get us there. This number was generated through the comptroller's office, so we have a matchup here that we think we're in the ballpark for something that we can move forward to.
And then the courts, the $5 million, didn't we just do something with the chiller? We gave them $1 million plus 800 from, so we gave them almost $2 million to update the chiller and all that in the courts, right?
Correct.
Right, that
Right.
was the
Okay.
courts.
So then over here, back to the court and juveniles, it's mostly in a juvenile division or something? I'm just curious if we were able to upgrade the Carnahan building for just at $2 million, why is it gonna take $5 million?
So the capital needs at the courts were generated by Mr. Joe Kuss, who also is, was here and works for the courts now, and the judges. And so the priority list, just walking down the list a little bit, roof and waterproofing on the 10th floor, roof on the second and third floor, elevators 3 and 5, roofing, gym roof, so that one is juvenile detention. Gym roof, juvenile detention, sump pumps, condensate at Carnahan Courthouse, replace steam traps, hot water pumps, perimeter heating valves, electronic valves, major air handlers, and so we would just pare down this list and take that to that 6.5 million. And yes, we did replace the major pieces of it, but there are still ancillary pieces that need to be replaced. So that's kind of a general piece on that Exhibit A, but the breakdowns are as I mentioned.
And we're gonna put the air conditioning for sure in the workhouse then?
Yes, that is the plan. Now, I do want to clarify that, obviously this would go in August and we would get approval and we would offer design and then we would have to bid it. So the plan would be is we would do temporary up there as we did last year until such a time that we got it full time.
And what did we spend on the temporary?
100,000 over 3.5 months.
That's correct.
And it wasn't very well regulated? It was either freezing cold
It was either chilly or
or hot. It wasn't chilly, they were saying it was cold. I don't know, I wasn't there.
Right. It's tough to regulate it when you're doing something temporary because it blows in big ducts, but it wasn't 100 degrees, so,
Okay, the fire chief, I know that part of that Prop P is also going for fire trucks and ambulances, maybe not enough.
Prop P, no, none of the Prop P went for any type of rolling stock. Prop P was all salaries and benefits.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, okay, going back, I'm sorry, and I could be wrong on what the prop it was, but the one when we were doing the stadium, and of course now, there's $11 million going to MetroLink, and $9 million that is gonna go into different departments.
That's the economic development sales tax,
Right.
which, if you remember, there was a formula for
Okay,
that.
that's
60% went for metro, 10% went for public safety infrastructure, and I believe
Right.
that,
It couldn't go for salaries, but it.
No.
But it will go for fire trucks and.
I don't believe that, I don't believe for fire truck, that's still to be allocated specifically, and I think the mayor's office is working on that, but there's a formula allocation based on the ordinance for that,
Right,
that
they're
hasn't been
putting a
fleshed
commi-
out.
right,
Right,
they're
and there's a
putting a
board,
committee together.
there's a board that gets
Right.
established and makes recommendations.
It'll make recommendations, but and I know it can't be used for salaries, so it's gonna
Right.
be broke up for guns or fire trucks or some building demolition. 911?
Yeah, yeah.
In what way in 911?
The 911 system that we have currently was purchased through a lease purchase in 2007. We have upgraded the software to the point that we can, and that was in 2011. We run roughly 50,000 calls a month through the system, and that's for police, fire, and EMS. So that's 6 million calls a year, and that's over 10 years, you do the math. And we know that the system, while it's working just fine currently, is basically hit the end of its normal useful life. And we've had some discussions about using the public safety, or a portion, I should say, of the public safety allocation that comes out of that economic development tax for the debt service to replace that system. We have 36 operating positions spread across 3 locations for 911, and I can't tell you what we will replace it with because we haven't begun the process until it's completely funded and approved by that board that was spoken
Well,
of.
the board doesn't approve it, they recommend.
They recommend, I should say.
And then this group would approve.
Absolutely.
So, and I guess my question, Chief, is, does this seem like it will correct your problems, or you're still far
This here?
behind? Yeah.
What
Chief,
this,
if you
Chief,
can come
wanna
on
stand
up
up here?
and you can sit right here.
There you go.
In that seat, yes, sir. Thank you.
Does this fix,
You're
you know, right
speaking-
now, we're still,
just to this exhibit, right?
right, just
Okay.
of this, and we're still rated, my understanding, we're not, FRA rated.
Our ISO rating is a 2.
Is a 2, because we dropped, will this bring us back up?
This will allow us to go to the ISO people and ask them to reevaluate, but there's still other issues that we have to fix from the public safety side in regards to the ISO rating because of their change in their standards. One of them we approached just a little bit ago with the 911 system. One of the big gigs, if you will, with our last ISO rating was the fact that we don't have a PSAP center, which is a public safety answering point. And we've had ongoing discussions with this. What that does, that takes the police, fire, EMS, communications division, puts them in one building and makes a universal call center. Right now, we transfer calls around based on who's receiving your call for service. Not the way the ISO wants it done anymore. They want one control center. And we've had discussions on that, and that's still, not having a PSAP center is probably going to limit our ability to move back to a 1 as far as an ISO rating. This buy here, with this next bond issue, will complete the buy on the fire side. This is going to replace all of our 20-year-old trucks. We did approximately a third in 2010. We just finished another third, and this will be our last third. So we're out of the cycle of completely replacing the fleet every 10 years, which is a requirement, where now we can do it a portion at a time. So this is good for us.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay. all right.
On that,
Well, let me
Can I-
get it.
go ahead.
Alderman
okay.
Oldenburg, if he has any questions.
No, I don't.
You don't have any questions? Okay, very good.
I had one follow-up to the question about the PS.
The PSAP center, Public
PSAP
Safety
center.
Answering Point.
Would that require having one consolidated position for people that answer the 911 calls? In other words, consolidating your people with the police and the, because
Yes and no.
we don't have people that just answer for EMS, right?
Yes, we have EMS dispatchers, which do a totally
Oh.
different process
Fire?
than fire or police.
Oh, okay.
Because if you're an EMS dispatcher, when you pick up the phone and somebody says, my baby can't breathe,
Okay,
you have to be able to
they
walk
have
them
some
through a
medical-
medical
okay.
procedure
Okay.
and stay on the phone. Where there's universal call takers, there's police dispatchers, fire dispatchers. It's not as easy as, I'm gonna send a truck. There's a
Right,
lot to
right,
it.
but I just was wondering with that.
There'll be a combination of people within the center, all
Okay,
working
with
under
a
one
variety of
roof
skills.
and
Okay.
one group of coordinators.
Okay, okay, and how close are we to making that happen?
I think that when we look at, it depends on which direction you want to go in. If you want to look at a totally brand-new standalone facility, we don't have the money to do it currently. If one of the things that has been kicked around that I think we're going to look at real hard is trying to find an acceptable existing facility that's currently within the system that we may be able to retrofit, convert to the PSAP location that we need. You know, we did a study probably 8 or 9 years ago that recommended what we needed to do in terms of the PSAP. And while it's aged a little bit, nothing has changed. And it's a best practices point, as the chief put out, just said. And it's something that, despite the fact that we don't have $12 or $15 million just for this item, it may be able to be accommodated in an existing facility with some retrofitting.
Didn't we used to use the facility on Oakland? Where
We
the,
did.
That was fire alarm
That was-
dispatch.
Yeah.
That was fire alarm only.
oh, okay, just people that
And
had
then,
alarms.
and then, believe it or not, we did EMS out of the Truman Center.
Yeah.
So we have I guess the journey to a PSAP has been somewhat nomadic in that we've had things move in many different places over the years. And in fact, that, you know, in the 36 station answering positions, we actually maintain a backup site as well, that served us well. And we'll continue to have that backup site. It's unfortunately at an undisclosed location
Which,
at this point,
is
so.
understandable. So would that consolidation or that project be part of BPS? Would that be under your purview?
It would be when we find the funding to do
To
it,
do
and
it,
so,
okay.
again, Jim talked about the PSAP being 13 to 15 million, that was in the $180 million bond that Paul talked about, and the idea would have been to build a, large facility
And
somewhere,
we didn't
but
get that?
cost prohibitive.
Okay, and it would cost again how much
13 to 15 million.
if we use a new one? If we built ground up? If
Right.
we didn't go ground up and we identified a
Couple, 3 million,
okay.
substantial savings.
Okay, have we looked into that at all? As
We
far
are
as
starting the
identifying-
investigation now and starting to look at what would meet the criteria that study Jim talked about.
Okay. All right.
Alderman
So,
Vaccaro.
the building that used to be the police headquarters, it still has 911 attached to the 911 operator still attached to the, yes, it does.
It's a separate building.
Well, it's a separate building, it's attached to the back of it.
You're talking about the radio communications building.
Right.
Communications.
Right, but it's on the same lot. It may
The
not
same
be,
block.
You know,
There's an alley between them.
okay,
It's a standalone building.
okay, so
Now,
what?
there's a tower that's on the old headquarters, okay?
Yeah.
But the actual place where they answer is a separate standalone building.
Okay.
And that's one of the things we're looking at, is modifying that building.
So what happened to, I mean, we were gonna sell it, we're not gonna sell it, we're gonna fix it up. The old headquarters.
All right, Rich can speak to what's needed to be able to sell it, Rich and Jim. Jim will put it on the market. Rich has some improvements to do to the building, to separate it out. He can speak to that.
We've been sitting on it, Rich, for a couple of years.
So basically, first of all, the property custody is still in the basement and in the lockup area of that building. So today, until we finish this property custody and move them out, that's step number one. Step number two is to put up a physical barrier between that building and the lab building, and also to relocate the utilities for the training academy. Because currently today, the training academy, it works on all the utilities that come into the main building. So you're probably $2.5 million to do those things before you can sell the building. The building itself needs, if we were to utilize it, needs $60 to $70 million in upgrades in order to make it compliant with code, ADA law, and all those things.
And last but not least, as Todd said, you see the tower on top of the building, on the roof. Well, on the 7th floor is one of the base station controllers for the Motorola 800 megahertz system. And that will have to be relocated at some cost as part of, I guess, decommissioning the building totally.
I was curious, so it's just hanging out there.
Okay, all right. Well, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Amendment 1, 2, and 3, which has to do with the,
Did we do them already?
Oh, we just to hear it.
right, okay. And,
So
yeah, we take these out, and we're gonna have, City Council, Julian Bush, if you can come up here, Mr. Bush, if you can explain the changes.
so we're doing amendment 1 right now?
Yeah.
They're all basically the same.
Well, I know, but I don't think we can do 3 amendments.
No, I know, we can't.
Can I do all three? I can do one at a time.
Okay. Technical question going here, so we'll go ahead and start on Amendment, 1, Mr. Bush, if you can explain
Right, well,
that.
the amendment that we have presented to you is considerably less interesting than what you've just been hearing. This is just a technical change in the bill. As you all know, the city charter provides that a two-thirds majority of the supermajority of the voters is required to pass a bond issue. However, the Missouri Constitution provides an exception to that. The general rule is two-thirds, but it's fourth-sevenths for certain elections. Those are held in a primary election, a general election, or municipal election day. And there's a legal controversy as to which prevails, and that's being litigated right now. The original bill that's been introduced to the Board of Alderman has a two-thirds requirement, and we've modified this to make it a more generic language. Essentially, it wouldn't tie us into the two-thirds. It provides that such supermajority is required by law. So if the courts ultimately determine that the fourth-sevenths prevails over the two-thirds, we're not going to be tripped up by the language of the ordinance. Is that understandable? It's hard to make things that are legal understandable, but if there's any questions.
So, you're just saying that since that's in flux,
Right.
this supermajority, whatever that.
Whatever it
They
is.
determine it, we're covered, we don't have to resubmit, we won't have to be kicked off the ballot
Right,
because of that.
exactly right.
That makes sense, it's a bit of insurance and not going through this.
We're just trying to be careful.
Cost to do this again, okay.
You want to mention?
And I'd like to make a motion now to,
Yeah, I would-
place,
I think we would do that, make a motion, amendment 1, oh, it's just 1. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Moore. Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Williamson.
all right,
You have 5 votes, Mr. Chairman.
all right.
Okay, well, I'm
I'd like to make a motion for Amendment 2.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve amendment number 2 on Board Bill 240.
And I'll
Second.
second in previous roll.
Previous roll.
All right.
Okay, so that's adopted.
Also would like to,
I'd like to make a
entertain
motion,
adoption for,
I make a motion, we adopt amendment number 3 to Board Bill 240, previous.
second in previous roll.
Mr. Chairman, a point of order.
Oh,
You're amending 240 committee sub.
No,
right, well,
no, because the committee sub was not taken up, so the
I thought.
the amendments were what was presented to the board this morning, so we would have had to have taken up the committee substitute
Officially take.
and then amended the committee substitute.
Okay, so.
Well, the
we're-
language, well, you can't bring it out of committee as is because
Right.
the committee, the original committee sub amended a technical error in the ballot language.
I thought we had it in front of us. I thought we had already.
Right, but the
I had to
committee
step out.
substitute was put in front of you today, but then we were brought the clerk was given the amendments to
But we never,
amend 240.
we didn't vote. I was out of the room, but my understanding, we didn't vote
Right,
to
correct,
put the committee and sub in front of us.
right,
Normally, we would vote, put it in front of us, then discuss it.
right, but was what would normally happen if we had not been submitted these amendments, because the amendments here are for Board Bill 240, and that's what is being taken up in this meeting,
It's
was Board
240.
Bill 240, if a committee substitute was gonna be put.
I
So
understand.
instead, we were given amendments to Board Bill 240.
Okay, so there will be amendments to 240, and so we're amending Board Bill 240, and then we're gonna take up the committee side?
No, the committee, no, you're amending Board Bill 240.
I think it's, you can't, because
That's a point of order that I cannot answer.
you have to,
Because what happened, and then this is an amendment
Not the committee, so.
Right, not the committee sub, so you. Take this as an amendment.
That's what I did.
This language. So that's.
Well,
we're just gonna have to take that.
Yeah, the problem is that they were supposed to change 4 or 5. not
Unless that was when I was out of the room, that was not.
five items.
Could we turn the camera
you
off?
just, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
How about we take a break?
Let's take a
Okay, he's
5-minute
breaking it
break.
down. The Ways and Means Committee meeting will come to order. And we have a Board Bill 240 on the agenda as amended,
Well, so I would like to make a motion that we adopt amendment number 4 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay. Also, I'd like to.
No objection?
No objection.
That's in the previous roll. So then,
Well, then I'll also entertain a motion to.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt amendment number 5 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll. I would like to make a motion that we adopt amendment number 6 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
Previous roll. No
I would like to
objection.
make a motion that we adopt amendment number 7 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
No objection.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt amendment number 8 to Board Bill 240.
We didn't do 7.
Didn't I just do 7? I'm sorry. Okay, so I apologize. I would like to
Withdraw your motion.
withdraw my motion and make a motion that we adopt amendment number 7
Second.
to Board Bill
Previous roll.
240.
No
Previous.
objections.
So now I would like to adopt amendment number 8 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
No objection.
I would like to move that we adopt amendment number 9 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
No objections.
I would like to make a motion we adopt amendment number 10 to Board Bill 240.
Second.
Previous roll.
No objections.
I'd like to make a motion we adopt amendment number 11.
12.
Well,
10, did we do
Wait a
11?
minute, we didn't do 11.
Oh, we didn't do 11.
I did do 11, I was just counting. So I'd like to make a motion we adopt amendment number 11. to
Second.
Board Bill 240 and
Previous roll.
No objections.
And so 12, and I'd like to do an amendment. I'd like to make a motion we adopt amendment number 12 to Board Bill 240
Second.
Second.
in previous roll.
No objections.
And is that 13 or is that it?
That's it.
That's it. So now we
So
have
now we have
240 as amended.
amended in front of us.
In front of
So
you.
I'd like to make a
And that's
motion to
what-
move to accept.
I'll
Bill
make a
240.
motion. I make a motion we accept Board Bill 240 as amended, voted out as a due pass recommendation on the committee.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay.
Has to be.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council, and members of the committee. Appreciate your patience. And,
Thank you.
We got there. Thanks
We
so
did
much.
it. That's
Stand
right.
adjourned.
Well, I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you got it right.
We got there.
We got